Okay, I'm just going to do a little review on how to change forms of quadratic functions. On the first one, we're starting with one that's in standard form. And what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite it in vertex form, and we're going to do this by completing the square. So when we complete the square, I'm going to take my constant, and it's plus 5, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides to move it to the left. So I have y minus 5 equals x squared minus 4x. And then what I have my students do is I add a box. I actually add a square. And then to figure out what goes in the square, you take your b term. My b term here is negative 4, and cut it in half. So that becomes a negative 2. And then whatever this half is, you square it. And negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. And you square to go in the square. And then whatever goes in this square has to go in this square over here. Then what that lets us do is this side, this is a perfect square trinomial, and the factored version of it is going to be a parentheses squared. It's going to be 2 of these parentheses. And the fast shortcut way to come up with what goes in there is you're going to put x, and then whatever this half is goes inside, so that'd be minus 2. Over here, I'm going to combine like terms, so I have y minus 5 plus 4, so that's y minus 1. And then I'm going to add 1 to both sides to get the y by itself. I have y equals x minus 2 squared plus 1. And that's my vertex form. And since that's vertex form, I know that my vertex is positive 2, 1, because it's always the opposite of what's with x. And if I'm going to graph it, when you do your table, your vertex should go in the middle of your table, and then everything's going to mirror around it. So I'm going to put 2, 1 in the middle, which means on this side I'm going to have 1 and 0, and on this side I'm going to have 3 and 4. So you put the vertex in the middle, and then you just get points on either side. I'm only going to have to find 0 and 1, because then 3 and 4 will mirror those. So if I plug in 0 to my equation here, I have y equal, this is for 0, 0 minus 2 squared plus 1. 0 minus 2 is negative 2 squared. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4, so 4 plus 1 is 5. And then I know this one's also going to be a 5. And then when I plug in 1, I have 1 minus 2 squared plus 1. This is negative 1 squared plus 1. Negative 1 squared is a positive 1, and 1 and 1 is 2. So I know this is 2, and this is also going to be 2 because it mirrors. So I have over 2 and up 1. Did that backwards. Over 2 and up 1. Over 1 and up 2. And 0 up 5. And this is up 2, and this is up 5. And so this is my parabola, okay, for the quadratic. Okay, but to convert from standard form to vertex form, you do completing the square. Right, our next one is already in vertex form. And so I can just look at it and know that my vertex is going to be negative 1 comma negative 5. But what they want to do now is change it to standard form. And we do that by expanding. So what this means, if I have like x minus 1 squared, that means I have 2 of those parentheses. So I'm going to actually write out the 2 parentheses, because that's going to be easier for me to do the FOIL or distribution. So I'm going to multiply those. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is x. And then 1 times x is x. And 1 times 1 is 1. And then I still have the minus 5 out here. Okay, my last step is I'm just going to combine like terms. So I have y equals, I have an x squared. I have x and x, so that's 2x. And then 1 and negative 5 is negative 4. And there we have it. I have it in standard form. And the last one is going to be writing something in intercept form by factoring. So I've got a factor. This is how I do it with my kids. First we find a, b, and c. A is 2. B is 5, and C is negative 3. So I put whatever A times C is goes up here. 2 times negative 3 is a negative 6. I put my B term down here, which is 5. And I need 2 numbers that are going to multiply to be 6 and add to be 5. And that would be negative 6 and 1. So I'm literally going to split 5x into negative 6x and plus 1x. And meanwhile, I still have the 2x squared comes down and the minus 3 comes down. Now I'm going to factor. So I do factor by grouping. I can take a 2x out of this, so I have 2x times x minus 3. And This is a plus, so I'm going to have a plus here, and there's nothing I can factor out of that, so I'm going to take a 1 out, and I have x minus 3. And then what we're going to do is factor this out, so I have x minus 3, and then what's left is the 2x plus 1. And that is my intercept form, so I'm going to put that up here, x minus 3, and then 2x plus 1. Okay, and then it says to find our intercepts. So I got to find P and Q. We've always said that P is the opposite of whatever's in here, but that's only true if you have a 1 in front of your x. This doesn't have a 1 in front of your x, so I'm going to show you the other way that we do this. And if I'm going to find my P, that's that first parentheses, you take the whole parentheses and set it equal to 0. Add 3 to both sides, and my x is 3. So that's my P is 3. So the intercept is 3 comma 0. For my Q, I take 2x plus 1 equal to 0, subtract 1, get it so you guys can see it, subtract 1, so I have 2x equals negative 1, divide both sides by 2, and x equals negative 1/2. That's my Q. So the other intercept is negative 1/2, 0. And so those are your means for converting